Hello, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in today. The topic that we're going to cover today is concealer, specifically concealers that are under $10 at the drugstore. I know we've all noticed it, and I talk about it a lot here on my channel, that drugstore prices are creeping up and up. With every new release, it seems like from the major brands, things are getting more and more expensive. So I thought, let's put a $10 cap on what we're talking about here and still give some really good, really amazing recommendations. You're going to see a couple of demos for these products. Obviously, I can't do all the concealers I'm going to recommend on my face today. There's like 5 or 6 of them, but I will link below to other videos where you can see the different concealers in action. Also, you should know that when you see the demo, it's going on top of a very light coverage product today. I didn't want to go throwing on a full coverage foundation and then try to explain how good the concealers are, you know? So I just used this new Kosas BB Burst, the tinted gel cream. I first showed this in my Sephora haul video. I'm trying to find the shade light, medium, neutral. So that is my overall very light coverage. So you can see the concealers doing most of the work. And really quickly, as far as what else is on my face, for my face color steps, well, I first used the Too Faced contouring stick in Chocolate Souffle as my overall contour. And then I kind of topped off with some of this bronzer from the Smashbox Halo Sculpt and Glow face palette in Pink Saturation. I used a combo of these blushes, and that's what I've got going on the face. And then I've seen several questions about the mini Too Faced palettes. This is the Born This Way Warm Ember Nudes. So I am wearing this one. Over the weekend, I kind of bounced back to the Born This Way Sunset Stripped palette, kind of preferring this over this just because I feel like there's even more blending options. And this one, you're a bit more confined. I mean, some people just like a smaller palette, but that's not the topic of this video. And then my lip color today, I used a combination of 2 hard candy lip liners. One is called Kiss and Tell. I think of it like a deep warm nude, and then I mixed in some of the shade Boyfriend, which is a little more brownish. So just combined the two and then applied my In Beauty lip glaze in the Cinnamon Bun color. I do absolutely love these glosses for their shine, their scent, their just overall look. They look great on top of lip liners. Okay, so now we can get to the concealer story. And the first thing I want to mention is a corrector that I really love. And some of these products are sneaking in just under the $10 mark. And by the way, it will always be cheaper at Walmart compared to Ulta. Just saying. Love and enjoy Ulta, and sometimes you can use those points. That can save you. As a whole, just baseline prices, it will be several dollars cheaper at Walmart. So corrector-wise, my favorite one is this NYX Pro Fix stick. I have it in the shade Pink for me. Really suits my skin tone well, really brightens and corrects me very effectively, but there are other options. And there are even skin tone options in this stick if you decide you really like the formula. But it's a slim design stick, and it's just very easy to completely tackle the exact area you want to cover up. You just literally draw it over your darkest area. You'll notice in the demo, I am only putting it on my innermost part and then a little bit on the outside for some lift. And then I can use my E.L.F. Complexion Duo brush, which would be probably my biggest concealer brush recommendation here. I use the small side. I can really easily target that, blend it out without blending it away. And if you wanted to, you can use the larger side to dab over. I'll use that for more of my liquidy concealers, but the result with this is just undeniably good. And the fact that it's kind of like this creamy texture, I feel like it tackles the dark circle better than a more liquidy brightener. One of the closest things, and I'll get to it, is the Maybelline Instant Age Rewind. You might find this to be a bit more lightweight on the skin, but still, I find this to be fairly thin and light, but still super effective with concealing. And another thing about my skin type here, I'm 40 years old, I have normal to dry skin, I prep my skin really well before makeup. And one thing I do is I take Vanny Cream, the moisturizing cream, and I will dab that around on my under eye and around my entire eye area because that's where I'm most prone to dryness. And let me tell you, that's a great base. If you really struggle with the look of your concealer because you think, well, it just looks like too much and my skin looks dry as soon as I put it on, prep your skin well. And that Vanny Cream, that is an amazing buy. You can find it at the drugstore. I pump some into my little jar here and I keep it upstairs so I can use that every day as eye cream. So talking talking about this, I think transitions right into the next concealer formula that I really love, which is the Maybelline Instant Age Rewind. And they do have that shade called Brightener. Brightener basically is the same color as this. This gives you more coverage, I think does an even more effective job of truly taking out the darkness. This is going to be that same tone, the shade called Brightener, but a thinner consistency. So it's going on your skin more like a liquid. If you feel like using a stick like this and possibly pairing it with another concealer over top, a skin tone concealer or whatever, feel like that's going to be way too much, you might think about this. I really like these Instant Age Rewind erasers. They've been around for a long time. I know they're some of the best selling concealers in the drugstore, and they're good about having just that thin, lightweight feel. I don't think they're as full coverage as an E.L.F. Camo concealer or like the L'Oreal Infallible concealer, some of those different ones that have clearly been fashioned after Tarte Shape Tape. I feel like it's not your highest coverage, but it is approaching that, and it has a very thin, light feel. So you can get the Brightener shade if you want something very lightweight that just clicks up through here if you've never seen these before, and it's got this little dabber. But if I were using this, I would use it pretty much the same way I go for this one. I would give some dabs directly over my darkest places and then blend that out and then top it off with a skin tone concealer. You wouldn't absolutely have to do that, but that would be my basic routine. As far as the skin tone shade that I like best for me in this product, it's the one called Fair. So sometimes I'll use the combo of these two. I've repurchased Brightener several times over. It's already down to here. My Fair is getting down to the bottom as well. These are used and loved and proven concealers for me. Not interested in a Brightener? Just use a skin tone. It's a good formula. Think liquid, think thin, easily blendable, good staying power. Does not contribute to the look of a lot of thickness on the under eye area. I really like those. Now, if hydration and moisture are a couple of your primary concerns with your under eye area and therefore your concealer, I have a couple of recommendations there. And then after that, I will talk about coverage, my main concealers for full coverage. But as far as hydration, this one from Neutrogena I think is quite good. It's the Radiant Cream Concealer. It's from their Healthy Skin range. It says it has peptides and antioxidants. Often in social media, I feel like this one gets compared to the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer, and it's just because the names are similar. This one's called Radiant Cream Concealer. Frankly, I don't think they're much alike at all, outside of the name and the shape of the tube. I don't know where people are really getting that comparison from. I think the NARS is thicker, more full coverage, more matte. This, I think, adds a good amount of moisture to the skin, and this is the one I demoed today because I feel like it's, of all the ones mentioned, maybe it's one that you haven't seen me use as much on my channel, but I have the shade Ivory Light 01. A very light shade. I kind of had to go light with this because the other shades just in the store appeared way too deep. But we've got a doe foot applicator here. When you blend it into the skin, immediately it feels thin and light, and as you blend it in, you feel a little bit more of that moisture. So the way I'll put this on, keep in mind I already applied a corrector today, so I did a little dot underneath where my corrector zone might be, and a couple of additional small dots on the under eye. I also used it between the brows, around my nose to neutralize redness, maybe down on the chin. I think of using this shade in particular for brightness and also concealing. And then I'll take that brush that I mentioned, the E.L.F. Duo Complexion brush. I'll use the smaller end to spread those dots out, make them take up more space on the face so I'm not immediately hitting a tiny dot with a huge brush and just basically swallowing it up. What we're trying to do is expand the coverage of that dot and the surface area that it's taking up. And after you do that, then you can go to your larger side and you can just start tapping over your concealer. We're not doing a rubbing back and forth. We're just bopping it in, okay? Tapping straight over it. You're preserving the coverage. You're keeping that concealer right where you put it with the smaller end, but you're making it look completely blended out. That's my strategy for these liquidy concealers, and my under eye after using this does feel very hydrated. Now, personally, do I go on and set things? Yes, I do. I choose to do that. I think it works well for me for staying power all day. I don't have an incredible amount of texture increases on the under eye. Granted, anyone could go overboard with powdering the under eye, and anybody could look thick if you throw on enough powder there, but I do a light amount of Maybelline Fit Me with my triangle powder puff. I just wanted to show this in case anybody wondered, do you set it? Yeah, and if you watch a lot of my videos, you see I often set the under eye, and then I will take a brush like my Morphe Under Eye Bullet brush and just kind of dust away any excess from that process. I'll usually set the under eye and the T-zone, and then I can go on about my day and have really good staying power. Another key to this, guys, I go back to the prepping of the under eye. I use the Vanny Cream as eye cream. It's beautifully rich. It's very hydrating. We're not going in just on dry skin with these steps. And I think that's very important to not lose sight of that, because if you don't really really prep your skin, or you just use a light moisturizer all over, and then you start going in with concealer steps, don't be surprised if the concealers don't look good. You have to hydrate the skin well going in. And this also, if hydration is key for you, this is a hydrating type of concealer. Another good one is from Neutrogena, and this may come in at a couple dollars over 10. It depends on where you buy it. I noticed it being under 10 on Amazon. You might find a deal, who knows, but it's worth mentioning because this is a very high quality drugstore concealer. It's again from Neutrogena. It's from their Hydro Boost line. It contains hyaluronic acid. It's a stick concealer with a little hydrating core, and I've yet to find another stick concealer that glides on quite this easily. It's just so beautiful. Like, there's no pull, there's no hard drag. I'm barely holding the stick, and it lays down a beautiful amount of moisture. Some people just love a stick concealer because it's very goof proof, right? You can just go over the area you want to cover and then blend it in. And if you don't want to use a brightening step like this or the brightener shade of Age Rewind, you don't have to. You know if you've got a really dark area to try to tackle, and you know if that added step is valuable to you. But if you want a non-drying, easy concealer, just the easiest way to go about it, I think, is a stick like this. Like I said, it's got that extra hydration. You're getting concealer, but a good part of this concealer is also just this hydrating core. It has hyaluronic acid, and I think it makes a difference. It's super easy to blend. You could just dab over it with your fingers if you want to bypass all this brush business. This may be the best choice for the person who needs a concealer but really doesn't like messing around with makeup too much. Neutrogena Hydro Boost, the stick. I do wish they would expand their shade range really with both of these and get into some more nuanced shades in their line. But if we're just talking formula and we're talking hydrating concealers, there are a couple of really good options from the drugstore. Now, we're shifting into our full coverage conversation with our last two concealers. One does also have some hydration, so if you're like, I want the hydration, but I want the best coverage I can possibly have, E.L.F. Hydrating Camo Concealer. This has been an Emily Award winner. This has been a favorite for a long time. I think E.L.F. did a really phenomenal job when they took their camo concealer, which definitely mimicked the coverage level of Tarte Shape Tape, and they put out a version that just had more richness to it, more hydration. I wear the shade Light Peach in this, and by the way, I will list my shade in all of these down below just for reference. So if you're out shopping and you're like, what was she wearing? I'm lighter than her, I'm darker than her, you can use that for reference. But this light peach color, we're talking definitely capable of full coverage. It's a concealer. For me, I'm going to just use a small dot of it, okay? So if I'm doing the under eye with this, I'm going to go like dot, 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 in the smallest sense. And then I'm going to take that complexion duo brush and I'm just going to spread those dots out and then dab over. It's the spread and dab. That's what you're going to do with any type of liquid doe foot applicator types of concealers. I can use this all over the face for other issues too, around my nose. Some might say, well, Em, that's the hydration and the coverage. Who wouldn't want that? And to that I would say, I think there are some people who just simply aren't as concerned with the coverage, who don't maybe think they need as much coverage and want something a little bit lighter on the skin still than this. It takes a little control. Be light with the application. Don't be swiping a whole entire like swath of this on the under eye. It will be too much and it can feel heavy. Go light with it. You won't over dry yourself. But if you're sitting over here thinking full coverage is not a concern for me, I just want some coverage and I want hydration, that's where we bring in these Neutrogena ones I just mentioned. And just to be clear, the Instant Age Rewind ones I don't think are over drying. I just think the Neutrogena ones are extra hydrating. The other option I want to mention for full coverage is the NYX Can't Stop Won't Stop concealer. This has some really incredible staying power. I do not feel this concealer offers a great deal of extra hydration. I wear it in the shade Vanilla, but I do think it keeps a very consistent look, and if my skin is well prepped, I'm not thinking I look overly dry with this one. It's a very traditional concealer in terms of, you know, doe foot applicator format. When you put it on, I mean, it feels like a lot of other concealers, but it can be very, very full coverage with a small amount, and the staying power is just really phenomenal for me with this. Again, not a lot of extra hydration, but somehow it still works quite well for me if we're talking all day wear. Another similar one that I've shown you recently on my channel that does a pretty similar job to this is the Rimmel Multitasker. This one probably comes in at a little lower price point than the NYX. Staying power has been superb with this when I pair it with my Rimmel Lasting Finish, but not as consistently awesome with absolutely any foundation. foundation that I choose. This one just kind of works very well on top of anything. So those are your full coverage options. One that's going to give you more richness and hydration. One where I would put a big emphasis on staying power. We've got our hydrating options here from Neutrogena, the Radiant Cream, or the Hydro Boost if you prefer a stick. We've got brightening options. The #1 brightening option for me in terms of coverage and just eradicating the dark circle. But these I'm recommending for kind of light, all-purpose, easy, won't over dry, has a brightener option, has skin tone options. For under $10, those are a very good option, and I think should be part of the conversation if we're talking about high-quality drugstore under $10 concealers. And if anybody's still with me here at the end, I thought this was going to be a really quick video, but I feel like I've talked forever. But if anyone's still with me and they're like, what about over $10 drugstore concealers? Like, is there anything that you would have wanted to mention in this video if it had been under 10? I do think the NYX Bear With Me Concealer Serum is a very advanced formula concealer. It's going to come in at a little over 10. What's kind of fascinating about this one is it has really good coverage. They call it Bear With Me Concealer Serum, and you're thinking, okay, so a concealer that does hardly anything? No. Potent coverage with a small amount. A little bit of this spreads a long way on the skin. Not over drying, a good product. I would have probably added this to my hydrating concealer conversation here. Also, I think the L'Oreal True Match Serum Concealer is good. I think this is even more coverage than this, but both are nice concealer formulas that are fairly new that have come in at a little bit more expensive price. So friends, I hope that sort of demystified the thought of drugstore concealer and where to begin. I know if you're starting out with makeup, it can be so overwhelming looking at all the options. We talked about the concealers, I talked about application, I talked about setting, but yeah, let me know if you have any more questions. Is there another product you would like to see discussed in this best under $10 conversation, or maybe an under $5? Just let me know what you'd like to see. I just think it's very relevant right now. So thanks for your time, everyone, and I will see you again very soon. I love you. Bye.